Electrocast.
Cars say a lot about who we are.
It represents freedom for a lot of people.
This season on Drive, I'm going to talk to all sorts of different people.
I looked at car names.
Yes.
And
yes.
I found all the car names that have science or astronomically
it's
inspired.
Crazy.
It's huge.
It is. Yes, I happen to be CEO of Ford Motor Company. For me, it's all about cars, movement, and our mutual passion for things that get us around. This is Drive, and I'm Jim Farley.
This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Ewan McGregor stars as Count Alexander Rostov in A Gentleman in Moscow, the new limited series based on the best-selling novel. Stream it on March 29th with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan. Visit ParamountPlus.com to try it free.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
Now this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you. I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or whatever movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up, and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host, Iris, and I'm here with my older brother.
Butthead.
With the inflection and everything. Today, we are discussing a movie from 1985. Wes's favorite movie of all time.
Jeez, spoiler.
Back to the Future.
Okay, what are we doing?
We've got to get you back to the future.
What are we doing? You're all excited. Why are we discussing Back to the Future?
Well, Back to the Future is your favorite movie of all time. And also, it is our companion piece this week to the primary episode, Still, a Michael J. Fox movie.
Still, one of the classics of all time. Look, I said still again.
See, that's what I'm saying.
We've covered the classics before. We covered recently, did Raiders of the Lost Ark. For the other favorites, we mostly talked about Us and how this movie has been present in at least my entire life. And it's very little about the movie itself because people know all the stuff.
I never realized that Christopher Lloyd was aged in the 1985 sequences.
So he's supposed to be old in 1985, so that when we go back to 1955, we can see him as a younger man. But then immediately in Back to the Future Part 2, my least favorite of the trilogy, he says he got a facial rejuvenation and he peels off the makeup and he's like, "What do you think?" And Marty's like, "It looks great, Doc." And I cannot tell the difference at all. What they were shooting for is to not have to make Christopher Lloyd up for the rest of the series.
Right.
So
exactly.
We see him with the Doc Brown signature white hair, but the youthful face that we saw in 1955. And that's the other episodes or whatever. But I'm just saying the aging gimmick only kind of works if you're really paying attention, because he looks the same to me. He was already in his 50s by the time we shot this movie.
I guess it would be too shocking to have dyed his shock of white hair for the 1955 sequences. Like, maybe we wouldn't have recognized him. That being said, this is the movie of not changing up hair, because Strickland, did that guy ever have hair?
And like these movies that are absolutely my favorites, I had never seen Strickland in anything else in my entire life except the Back to the Future movies. But then he's the guy that gets all up in, you know how he's like, "No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley," and he touches noses with Michael J. Fox. I think he similarly gets all up in Maverick's face in Top Gun as the hard-nosed flight instructor guy who will be damned if he lets Maverick or some punk kid buzz his tower.
And similarly, Maverick doesn't break down. Maybe it's because James Tolkien is, somewhere between 5'4" and 5'7".
Man, he needs to get all up in your face and be authoritative or whatever, because that's what he's got. He's got a Napoleonic complex. He's like the R. Lee Ermey of popular 80s fare.
I don't know what that means. Who?
The drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. He's like the nice version of that guy.
Nice version?
Yeah, but
That's
he's like lovable or whatever. You love Strickland. Adult me loves Strickland. When I was this kid and when I looked up to Marty McFly as a big bad senior or whatever in high school, then he was a punk ass administrator and I hated him because he was the man, like the authority man.
How tall, trivia question, is William George Zane Jr.?
He's got it. Well, I think he's around Biff's height, so I'm guessing at least 6, possibly 6'1".
Yeah, good job.
Man,
6.5.
already blew my trivia, which is what connects Back to the Future, my favorite movie, with your favorite movie, Titanic.
One, Billy Zane, a.k.a. Kaladin Hockley, a.k.a. What's his name in this?
Thug number 1 or something.
For some reason, he's named Match.
Match. His first feature film role in Back to the Future, arguably his biggest role or his most famous role as Cal Hockley in Titanic.
He's one of Biff's lackeys in Back to the Future. Is he also in Back to the Future too?
I don't believe so. In that one, one of them is a girl and one of them is an Asian because it's the future and it's progressive.
Mm-hmm.
The far off future. I was 9 years old when this movie was released. This started my love of movies. I walked multiple blocks from Mom and Dad's house in Hawthorne to the Hawthorne Plaza to watch this movie by myself with other people. Imagine a 9-year-old. I saw this movie no less than 6 times in the theater by myself or with other people. Back to the Future 1 is a perfect movie.
And some people say a perfect script, which makes a lot of sense. We walked out of an AMC, and there outside were parked the DeLorean and the Ecto-mobile.
Nice.
And I was like, wow, it is so insane that 40 years later, these vehicles can conjure up so much nostalgia and still carry so much weight for me. Like, it's wild.
Yeah. DeLorean wrote the producers and director a letter thanking him for reinvigorating his car brand because while the DeLorean looked cool, it was a frickin' lemon. The reason that Marty has the little extra digital speedometer, which tells us when we're getting to 88, is because stock DeLoreans, that speedometer goes up to like 65.
What?
Yeah, it was a 4-banger. It was a piece of garbage. It looks awesome. I'm going to say the best, the coolest looking movie car in the history. I mean, this to me is cooler than the Batmobile. Definitely cooler than Ecto-1, but in such a pop culture institution, such an indispensable part of movie lore that it was actually combined with the Ecto-1 in Ready Player One in the novel. Parzival flew and drove what he called the Ecto-88. Which was a DeLorean with a hover conversion with a Ghostbusters logo on the door. And technically it had a Knight Rider woo-woo kind of sensor on the front.
Wow, that's a pop culture mashup right there.
I was driving on the freeway, and I know that there are a lot of celebrities. Seth MacFarlane's probably the most famous, who has a fully mocked up DeLorean, complete with flux capacitor and all that stuff. I was on the freeway in Orange County, and a fully developed DeLorean time machine zoomed by me, and I lost my mind. I was screaming like a little girl at a Taylor Swift concert. I floored it, and I was driving recklessly to try to get a picture of it. It was one of the best days of my life.
See, and that's the power of the DeLorean to conjure up imagination and adventure and excitement and nostalgia. It's all these things that are wrapped up in Back to the Future for me. So, question, and kind of a left turn here. I'm assuming you watched this critically for the purpose of this review?
Yes. Well, I listened to it critically while driving. I've seen this movie more times than I can count.
More times than Indiana Jones?
Indiana, you mean Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Oh my God, yes.
100%. Back to the Future is my favorite movie because it, like you said, opened my mind to the possibilities, the wonder, the magic of movie making. It was cool. It was a high school kid that I looked up to or whatever. And then it just showed me what was possible. The DeLorean, the time machine as a model, represents what I love about movies. It takes you places that I did not think were possible. And this may, time travel certainly not a new convention, H.G. Wells and stuff, and the time machine. But Back to the Future is my time travel movie. And it was fun. It was exciting. It was daring. It was a little bit convoluted and a plot that my little brain worked really hard to keep up with the science. But
agreed.
Yeah, there was that whole thing with your parents and family and a love story and a standing up to bullies and asserting your independence and standing up for yourself, and all that stuff was great. And music and guitars and fast cars and pretty girls and et cetera and et cetera. And it hit all the spots for me as a wide-eyed, not even like a preteen. Back to the Future is my Taylor Swift.
Wow. Poster quote. Michael J. Fox as we discuss in our review of Still, a Michael J. Fox movie, is a larger-than-life actor whose performance is larger than life as Marty McFly. He's, in this weird way, he's macho, he's great with girls, he's super charming, he's super slick, he's super cool, even if he has his own doubts, right, about his music, whatnot. But he seems like a kid who's got it pretty much together. He is a little bit of an outsider in his family in that he looks at his family as being, I don't know, for lack of a better term, losers.
Yep.
I felt like his message to me was you can be whatever you want, regardless of the environment, the context that you're brought up in. And you could be a force of change in that context, as he proves to be in the somewhat controversial idea that his family is quote unquote better at the end. Have you heard about this controversy that people say that it's like a wrong message that to suggest that because they're rich, they're better?
You mean, and by some people, you mean pain in the ass Crispin Glover, who was forever at odds? He was the second most pain in the ass to the producers of this movie, but he said that the message was all wrong. Was like, I don't like that it's money focused, that because the family has money, somehow they're better than when Marty first lived with them in the alternate 1985 or the real one. Similarly, Eric Stoltz, the original Marty McFly, viewed it as a tragedy. It's so sad. Isn't it tragic that Marty remembers a future that no one else remembers, that it's all in his head, and now he has to live and pretend to be someone who's not, blah, blah, blah. And Crispin Glover stayed on the movie. Eric Stoltz got fired. And then Crispin Glover was like, I stand on my principles, and I'm not going to appear in Back to the Future 2, because it's not all about money being a happy ending. And then it went on to star in another time travel movie where money is the happy ending, in Hot Tub Time Machine, a movie I also really like.
Well, when you need money, you need money.
Right. In this day and age, it's not fair or cool to judge people based on their, difficulties or their differences or whatever. But Crispin Glover is freaking crazy.
And that's what Michael J. Fox literally says in Still. He's like, what are they shooting over there? Oh, crazy Crispin Glover got cast in that movie? He literally calls him Crazy Crispin Glover.
Crispin Glover is a Clowny Clown Clown, which is one of the songs that he wrote. And a video, which if you haven't seen, check out Clowny Clown Clown on YouTube. So even I think, Iris, you have no problem getting behind me on this one, because Crispin Glover directed What Is It? And he put it out for the entire world. And while I think this dude is actually he's a good looking, he's got presence and real acting ability, he's among the craziest.
Crazy Crispin Glover does not reprise his role in Back to the Future 2 because of moral reasons. Why does Claudia Wells get replaced by Elizabeth Shue?
Oh, man, Claudia Wells. She came into the role after Eric Stoltz left. If there's a tragic figure, if there's a tragic tale, it's not Crispin Glover. It's not even Eric Stoltz, who got fired. It's not Michael J. Fox, who developed difficulties later in life, but who's still Michael J. Fox. And it's not Claudia Wells, who played Jennifer and didn't appear for the sequels. It's Melora Hardin, who got fired from Back to the Future after Eric Stoltz got fired through no fault of her own, but only because she was like 4 inches taller than his replacement, Michael J. Fox. And you couldn't have her. This girl got fired because she was too tall.
Vis-a-vis Michael J. Fox.
Tragic story. Claudia Wells is what Bob Gale, the writer and producer of Back to the Future, said was the perfect height to play against Michael J. Fox, and she was the perfect Claudia. I have her autograph, gotten for me by the sneak from like Anaheim WonderCon or something, but she had to care for her sick mom. And she left, and it necessitated a recast, and we got Elizabeth Shue, whose husband went on to direct Michael J. Fox in Still, a Michael J. Fox story.
Claudia Wells, a solid, even 5'4". So Michael J. Fox has a 1/4 inch on Claudia Wells. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, to be in one of the best, if not the best movie of all time.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Life is hard, but finding a really great podcast makes the days go by so much easier. Hi, my name is Blue Telusma. I'm a writer, an emotional intelligence coach, and the host of Humanize with Blue Telusma, a podcast where we believe that when you humanize everyone in the room, a great conversation is almost guaranteed. Join us every week here on Electricast as me and my guest co-hosts unpack big topics and interview even bigger personalities with a sense of humor and a dash of mischief. If you're looking for a new best friend in your head, we've got you covered. Electricast.
And a movie that I questioned sharing with my 4 and 7-year-old daughters. Do you think that Paloma and Aurelia are ready for Back to the Future?
I think so. There are a couple of, well, it depends. There's stuff that I didn't understand, like when Biff's gang runs into the band from the Enchantment Under the Sea dance and Marvin Berry, and he's like, I don't want to mess with no reefer addicts, man. And I didn't know what that meant.
even though all 4 or 5 of them come out of a smoking car.
Yeah, no, that was like movie fog. I didn't know what that was. And so really what's questionable, it's a little bit deeper and you have to understand Disney and frankly every studio passed on this script. Disney most notably because they simply could not endorse what they called the incestuous love story.
Oh, yep.
That is Lorraine falling for her son. Of course, when she kisses him, which moms do to their kids anyway, she immediately said that it was wrong and that it was like kissing her brother. So we put the kibosh on that. But she's so obviously, as Doc put it, amorously infatuated with him. It could be a little bit uncomfortable. But I don't think the girls are there to get that just yet.
It wasn't until this viewing that I realized that she's a full-on cat in heat. Like she's like heavy breathing and like all up on him, touching his leg and stuff like that. Have you thought differently watching the Biff Lorraine car scene than you perhaps did when you were a kid?
I did consider it, and he's like, this ain't no peep show or whatever, and sends his gang away. He is, as dudes did, and I'm sure still do, taking advantage of her. But also Marty was prepared to do that. He was banking on the idea that Lorraine, his mom, would never, call a boy or sit in a car with a boy, right? And so he was going to take advantage of her and I guess try to, in my mind, smooch her and touch her on her, or whatever that is. And that she would be so outraged, she would fight him off and allow George the opportunity to come and knock him out. I assumed as a kid that's what Biff was going to do. He was going to try to kiss her and try to touch her shoulders or whatever. I had no real concept. Was Biff outright going to rape Lorraine?
That's what I'm asking. Is that, despite the comic amount of petticoat, is that a rape scene?
Part of me wants to say that in 1955, nothing as horrible as that would happen. And another aware part of me says that in 1955, if that would totally going to happen, there would be far less consequences for him. It's shocking to me how young they all are now. Like Michael J. Fox was 25, a baby face 25. But everyone else, they look like high school. She looks so impossibly young in that dress. It just doesn't even register as sexy to me. She's like peach yogurt, and she's like a baby in that little chiffony thing. She's
Yoplait with hair.
Right? And like trying to smoke and drink, and it all feels like a hustle to me. Like anybody drinks, it just doesn't track to my 9-year-old brain.
Brian, bless his little heart, said that the first time when he saw this movie, that he knew, although he didn't understand what he knew, that what was happening in the car between Biff and Lorraine was wrong. And remembering that is what's giving him pause to allowing the girls to see Back to the Future.
Well, it's a depiction But there's the violence angle to be considered, and the idea that this can be solved or righted or justice can be handed down by way of violence. I don't know, man. It's difficult for me because I was, as we discussed before, I was watching way worse stuff when I was Paloma's age. In an idealized setting, you might want to give it a year or two, I guess. I don't know.
I didn't really realize, I didn't even understand what Marty was saying when he was kind of dancing around.
Girls get upset when you take advantage of them. That part?
Yeah, I was like, what? And then he's in the car and he's like, sometimes you got to do something that you don't want to do. And I was like, do what?
Aw. But the problem is with Paloma comes Aurelia, and she's too young for this movie for a number of reasons. The whole idea is that you're in a teenager's shoes on the verge of adulthood, and Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis' original conceit was Bob Gale found a yearbook of his dad's yearbook and was shocked to discover that his dad was senior class president. And he wondered if I were in high school with my dad, would we have even been friends? It's like a dad that he didn't understand or know. And so Marty goes back and sees if he can get along, if he can identify with his dad at all.
Wow.
That's kind of heady, like teenage angst, sort of on the cusp of adulthood. What kind of adult will I be? Will I be like my loser parents who get taken advantage of by Biff, their boss, and whose mom is like, say, your mom for me. And it's like, ew. But that's what it's about. And I'm sure that there's flashy stuff, but also here's what I came to realize in my subsequent viewings, critical viewings of Back to the Future. I love the DeLorean as a car. I think the introduction of that car, who's also a character in this movie, is one of the best in history.
Oh, it's all growling.
And coming out of the smoke, just like the reefer addicts coming out of the car, the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, there's smoke in there for some reason. It's beautiful movie magic, and it emerges, and it's growling and going back in time and speeding, and let's see if you bastards can do 90 and stuff. It's so amazing. And I love, there's all the stories about how the story changed and how the ending is nothing like the original conceit, but still this race for time where I'm excited and scared, and Marty is trying to get the DeLorean to work so he can get it up to 88, and Doc is hanging from the clock tower and trying to, beat the clock, avoid the lightning, and then the thing pulls out of the thing, and what's he going to do, and slides down, and I'm literally angry. The way they draw out the suspense literally makes me angry. I hate it. I hate it when the car dies and he's fighting and then the alarm goes off. Doc says, when this alarm goes off, you hit the gas. And the alarm goes off and he doesn't hit the gas and he's still dicking with the ignition. It infuriates me. The fact that Doc pulls out the thing and he screams, and then he half-ass winds the wire around the clock, like the hand of the clock, and that supports his weight while he slides down hero style. Infuriates me. The idea that Doc gets electrocuted by the full force of 1.21 gigawatts going, it drives me crazy. The fact that Marty got there at the exact moment to channel the lightning into the flux capacitor, even though he didn't, if he had hit the gas when he said go, he wouldn't have timed it correctly. All that stuff infuriates and thrills me and drives me absolutely crazy. And all that excitement is wrapped up in these two car scenes, and that's kind of it. Other than hitting Old Man Peabody's tree, the DeLorean is a non-issue. Definitely the case in part 3, we barely see that car at all because it gets an arrow in the gas line. Spoiler, it plays a much bigger role in part 2, but that's kind of it. For kids, coming back around to my point from 5 minutes ago, it's kind of a talkie. And if you don't understand the concept, it's not so much flashy time machine as my memory suggests. It's and that's what represents the movie. It's in the trailer. It's in the poster. It's in all the keychains. They don't sell the Funko Pop figurines of Marvin Berry and the Enchantment Under the Sea dance band.
Marvin, your cousin Marvin Barry.
You have to understand the dynamics of family, of Marty seeing his mom, being all broken down and alcoholic, and then young and vivacious and smoking and drinking. His dad, being a doofus, but then being a tree climbing peeping Tom and trying to learn to stand up for himself and stuff.
He's a peeping Tom.
Yeah.
He's like all disgusted and fascinated at the same time.
Right. Would that be appropriate for kids? I mean, we're showing that Marty's parents aren't perfect at whatever age they are. Really difficult for me to come to the exact understanding that I did yesterday when I realized that Marty says, where are you going? Doc says 30 years into the future. Seems like a nice round number. Look me up. I guess I'll be around 47. Literally my age as we're recording this discussion. I am the same age as, presumably, because they were his age, 17-year-old high school seniors, as Lorraine and George in the present. I'm sorry, Mr. McFly, I was just putting on the second coat now. The same age as Biff. I'm that age. I'm literally the parents' age, and nothing has ever hurt more.
Wow, you might as well just put on the golf pants or get your own matchbooks printed up. Be like, Marty, wanted to show you these new matchbooks I got made for my detailing service.
Man, that's not bad. It's better than my doc, which is too over the top.
You know what I always think about when I think about the family scene where Marty is having dinner with Lorraine and his grandparents?
Young kid from the Wonder Years?
Oh, yeah. Who plays his uncle? Not Joey, Jailbird Joey, but the other one?
Yeah, it's like Marvin or something. He's wearing he's wearing what's the guy's name with the raccoon cap? Davy Crockett.
Oh, Davy Crockett. Yeah. That was a very 50s thing. But when they're trying out their first TV for the first time, and Marty's like, yeah, we got 2. And he's like, you must be rich. Dude. And then the parents all come in. They were like, he's just kidding. Nobody has 2 TVs. You know how many TVs we had at the time of my first viewing of Back to the Future? We had 8. I counted them.
Like right now?
No. One of the first memories I have of watching Back to the Future, they had this conversation, and I went around the house and I counted, and we had 8 TVs.
How is that possible? I don't have 8 TVs now.
We had that weird radio tune-in bunny ears portable TV. Do you remember that one?
Yes, that one that I got from, I guess, gift from Mom, but secretly took into the room and hid under the blankets to watch TV at night. Yes.
I had one in my room. You had one in your room. That's 3. So there were another 5 throughout the house. I mean, Mom and Dad have perpetually had a TV in their bedroom. I think we had an old one in the garage and then 3 others.
I guess if you're counting phones now, we have around 10 screens that are capable of showing Back to the Future or Jackie Gleason.
Yes.
But still 8, that seems like a lot. We must have been super rich.
That's what I was thinking.
Man, us looking back 30 years ago from Back to the Future is looking at 1993, dude.
They talk about teenage and coming of age angst. You have ageist angst.
Definitely do.
Big time. What are we going to do about this?
I have
Because
no
you're not
idea.
getting any younger.
Like Back to the Future's message, it's a very valid message. If you have a lot of money, nothing matters. You're inherently a better person.
See, this is also the fatal flaw, your fatal flaw. What is the message of Back to the Future?
Well, I guess in a way that it's not really all about you, that your parents are real people who have all the perceived flaws that kids see in their parents. They are those people, but they also have their own hopes, dreams, flaws, concerns, fears, and the ability to fight through those fears and self-actualize and self-realize is a triumph. Both as a teenager and then at their advanced age of 47, when he's too afraid to send his writing to a publisher, self-realization and self-preservation and all of these things help you for not being afraid of life.
It's really weird. It is impossible as a child, impossible to think of your parents as having lives before you.
Yeah. I think that's mostly because we're engineered to avoid thinking about our parents being romantic beings, like Mom and Dad doing it. That's just a horrible thought.
Oh.
See?
Ew.
See? But that's a major component of their lives. Marty spends the movie trying to get his parents to bone.
Well, and when it comes down to your own existential crisis, then yeah, I can get behind that.
You know, he spends more romantic time with his mom than he does with Jennifer Parker.
Oh, definitely. You're my ma. You're my ma. What does he end up saying? Daddy-o?
Yeah, well, she interrupts him and says, "My name is Lorraine. Lorraine Basin." He says, "Yeah, but you're so thin." And then he says, "You're not picking a fight. It's not a fight, Daddy-o."
And that's just signature, perfect Michael J. Fox timing.
It's really great. And Crispin Glover looks so incredibly young. Don't get me started on Leah Thompson and how young she looks. And they're aged up, and that blew my mind. I firmly established them as the parents, and to see them so incredibly young still blows my mind. Of course, they're all young actors, aged up initially. But it really showed me that nonlinear storytelling is super effective. And it wasn't just a straightforward, action adventure story like Indiana Jones or something. You could really do anything you want with movies and special effects and as painstaking and frankly kind of unfinished as they are in this movie, it really communicated something to me.
All right, so now here's the test. Were you simply right place, right time, and this is a spectacular movie? Or is there something more that makes Back to the Future your favorite movie of all time?
I mean, we are products of our environment, right? And this was a singularly formative experience in my life, in my appreciation and love of movies as an art form. I do think it's very well put together, especially given what a total calamity production was, how haphazardly it was thrown together. Like this thing, it's like not even duct tape, it's like Scotch tape. And to pull off something this miraculous is a real testament to Robert Zemeckis as a filmmaker, Bob Gale as a producer and writer, who will forever have my heart. Any of Robert Zemeckis' missteps can be forgiven because of Back to the Future and Forrest Gump.
Yeah, the goodwill overflows into everything else. So it sounds like it's a little bit of both. It's a combination of being at the right place in the right time and being a movie that is no doubt, a classic, beloved, and in many people's opinion, including yours, perfect. And so just how lucky and fortunate you were that Back to the Future in many ways set you on the course that it has. Probably can be credited with us being here today. How was that for a segue?
Great. Totally. It's a totally. Why did you want to discuss Back to the Future?
Because I watched Still and I was all inspired, and I'm looking for opportunities to share some of my favorite films with my daughters, which is a whole time trip in and of itself.
Man.
And that's our discussion on Back to the Future from 1985, Wes's favorite movie of all time, if I haven't mentioned it. But I think our love for movies comes through with the 200 plus episodes we have at orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts. If you've checked them out, if you've enjoyed them, if you enjoyed this discussion on Back to the Future, give us a 5-star review. Also, we love to hear from you, 818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, what's happening out there, everybody? This is Lawrence Ross, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about my podcast, The Lawrence Ross Show. Egomaniac. It's a 2-hour weekly exploration into my mind. I also do sketches, celebrity impersonations. You're out of order! And I also do song parodies. Not too shabby for a blind guy.
Not only are you visually impaired, but you are geographically impaired.
New episodes are released every Friday. Check it out on your favorite podcasting platform or listen to it here on Society 13 on Electrocast.
Welcome, explorers of the human experience. This is Let's Talk Soul, and I'm your host, Claudia Monticelli. We're not afraid of the great mysteries of existence here. Soul versus consciousness, we're on it. Spirituality versus science, we've got that covered too. Join us in navigating these profound topics with wisdom, curiosity, and a dash of audacity. Whether you're a spiritual veteran or just starting your journey, Let's Talk Soul is your passport to the unknown. Let's Talk Soul, diving into the depths of the human spirit. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
Electrocast.